Tanse, hello. Thank you for supporting the work that we do. The UDR Cast is a full-time job, takes a lot of work. I have a lot of people helping me, supporting me behind the scenes, and basically really trying to support the people who listen to it. I do the UDR Cast out of the passion of my heart, and sometimes, it gets hard to make it happen. But we as a team try to join forces and get the content out. So I'm just asking you from my heart if you have an opportunity to maybe help support the podcast through donations, a cup of coffee a month, a cup of coffees a month. Check out my Patreon account. We're accepting subscribers and donations there. Also, if you want to click onto my website, BILLWARDLIFE, there's a button there, it takes you to the Patreon. And, if we're helping you or your family or understanding, just think about giving us a hand up so we can keep creating great content. And if you have any suggestions on what you might want us to talk about, leave it in the comments on the website. Thank you. Hi. Welcome to the UDRCast, coming at you live from the Recovery Capital of Canada. I am the host of the UDRCast, Bill Ward, and today is March the 8th, 2025. No, March the 7th, 2025, and Brooke is in town, Brooke Robichaud, and she is one of the main facilitators of the E2R conference that's coming here tomorrow. And I reached out to her a couple months ago, and I asked her if she would maybe have time to jump on the mics with me today, and here she is. Hi, Brooke.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here, and I've been watching you on, TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and just watching you blow the things up, eh?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, doing all sorts of things. I really like your comedy, your recovery comedy thing. That's pretty cool, eh?
Yeah, that's been one of the most fun things I've tried. When I first got sober, I got this book and I started putting things in it of things I wanted to do in my life. And one of the things was stand-up comedy. And there was this class that was called Hilarapy, and you learned stand-up comedy, and it was like a mix of stand-up comedy and therapy together. Mm-hmm. And it was a recovery-based one. So I joined that class and I got to go perform. And then I've been doing odd shows here and there from that opportunity. And it's just been so much fun.
Nice.
It's one of my favorite ways to share the message and share my story and relate to people in recovery, and people who are really new in recovery really gravitate towards recovery comedy, I've been finding.
Nice. And you do a number of other things. What are some of the other, before we get into your story, which I would like to maybe walk the audience through how we got here today. Mm-hmm. But what are some of the other things that you're doing in the world these days?
So I have a business called the Sober Biz Collective, and I help sober entrepreneurs launch online brands, which is how I got connected with Jay and Empower to Recover. And since we've kind of been building that, I've been working alongside Empower to Recover to do a lot of their marketing and website design and all that kind of stuff, and then coming to events when I can. And I've also connected with a bunch of treatment centers. I'm working really closely with TWC right now on their family recovery programming. And I host a mom's recovery meeting on Tuesday mornings, and I facilitate the group there. And so it's every Tuesday to Saturday at 10 a.m. We have moms getting together, talking about recovery. It's been amazing. Absolutely love that. And then I do the recovery comedy. I host events for sober entrepreneurs to learn about different things around social media. We did a branding workshop last time. We're going to be doing another speaker event where I just get local sober entrepreneurs together to talk about their stories and what they're doing and try and lift and empower them.
Just spearheading all over the place, eh?
Yeah, I feel like I'm at a point now where I'm trying to figure out where to funnel my energy, but this last few years has just been kind of spaghetti at the wall. How can I help people? How can I show up? Where can I share my story? How can I be of service? And then just kind of following what feels good, what feels right, what feels like higher powers leading me. Mm-hmm. But in order to do that, I just got to try stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get you. Throwing it at the wall, seeing what sticks. And sometimes we throw it back at the wall and maybe it sticks later.
Yeah, exactly.
What's it like do you find that the recovery industry, I guess you could say, Is it male dominated? Is it female dominated from your perspective, or is it fairly equal?
I work with pretty equally male and female. I think the recovery space that's like funded through the government is very male dominated. A lot of treatment centers are male dominated. There's not a ton of resources that are women focused. There's more coming in BC. Like there's a couple of women's treatment centers that have opened up, but a lot of the funding and a lot of the programming seems to be funneled into male centered. I'm finding there's a lot more female like recovery coaches and counselors, people that work one-on-one with you in your recovery. I've worked with a lot more females than males in that sense. And I think there's definitely been a boom of women in recovery. I feel like we need something a little bit different because like I came into recovery, I went to a 12-step program written by men in the 30s, and they're talking about being selfless, like show up for other people, like stop thinking about yourself. But a lot of women, especially mothers, we show up and that's all we do, right? Like I was like, hell yeah, I can do this. I'm going to show up for everybody. Let me be at your cake. I'm going to be there for this event. I'm volunteering for this. I'm doing that. And I'm burning myself into the ground and ignoring the things I needed to do to take care of myself completely. And then I'm beating this smack out of myself because all I want to do is look at what's wrong with me. What are my defects? Like, how can I improve? All that kind of stuff. And just constantly beating myself up. And that's important, I think, in order to kind of get rid of that ego. And I think it was an important part of my recovery. But then I had to learn how to show up for myself. What did self-care look like? Selfless self-care, like, because there's such a fine line. I can go back into self-centered pretty quick. So I'm loving that there's more of that coming out. There's a Women's Way to Recovery book talks about calling your defects of character defenses because they are defenses that we built up, and it's a little bit more gentle. So there's stuff like that I'm finding that I'm really loving. Yeah.
As you were speaking there, and I know 12-step recovery fairly well, there's a line that you just reminded me of that I think people miss. And I honestly think 12-step recovery is misconstrued based on what the original intent of what it is through the literature. And there's a line that says, faith alone is insufficient. To be vital, it must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. So the unselfish constructive action is what everybody thinks that it's kind of about, but really it says self-sacrifice first. So identifying self. What does self look like? And like maybe too much service and me getting validation or always wanting to show up for somebody else can be, self-defeating to me. And to identify those things and kind of what you were saying about finding self-care in that and finding the ability to not people please and to say, you know what, I can't do that for you because I need my own time. And like finding these aspects of self and like conquering them and accepting them. And so I believe that, through that, faith becomes vital. Like it starts lighting up our lives. And then it actually allows us to unselfishly help people with the right motive, if that makes sense, right? So
100%.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I used to show up till I was resentful, you know?
Exactly.
And then when I was going through stuff in my own recovery and I couldn't be there for anybody anymore. And it was like, I lost my value. I lost my worth. I had nothing. There was nothing other than what I could do for other people. So yeah, then I had to kind of dig. I don't know if there's any other way to learn than like overdoing it and then underdoing it and then finding your way into the middle. I hope there's another way to learn this because it's a hard journey, but yeah, it's so true.
I think that is the way.
Yeah.
And then it just gets easier later. So far, that's what I've been learning.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's kind of walk back in your life and, maybe if you could take our listeners back to like what your young life was like. Did you grow up with parents, brothers, sisters, and kind of watching your alcoholism or your addictions like start to grow, and maybe what were some of the catalysts for it?
Yeah, well, when I grew up, my mom was like severely traumatized by her upbringing. She had a mom who struggled with heroin addiction and alcoholic, and her dad wasn't in her life, and they were low income. drug dealers, gangsters. They had guns pointed at their heads and stuff. So, I mean, today I have so much grace and love for my mom, but growing up, like I couldn't understand why she wasn't loving me, why I wasn't getting that care. She did her best, and she like tried to get us into like this nice neighborhood and make sure we had like good people around us, because she grew up in the projects and she didn't want us growing up like that, right? But for me, it made me feel so different than everybody. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at everyone having like dinner together at night and getting tucked into bed and getting all these Christmas presents every year and having stability and getting taken to school and like all these things. And I'm looking at my home and I'm like, oh, my mom doesn't love me. Nobody cares about me here. Like, nobody wants me was the story that I created in my head. And, I just kept looking at my neighbors and being like, okay, what are they doing? What makes them good people? Why do they have money? Why do they have homes? Why are their parents together? And so I kind of like dissected them, and all of them were going to church. So I'm like, oh, it's church. Like that's the answer, right? So I started going to church with them and, started believing in Jesus and just being like, okay, this must be the answer. And I swore up and down I would never be like my family. There was addicts and alcoholics all over. My cousins were on the downtown east side in Vancouver, which is, I don't know if you know about it, but an absolutely horrific situation. I had aunties and uncles that were in and out of jail. There was not a lot of success around me. So I just swore I was never going to pick up a drug or a drink. I would cry because my mom would smoke cigarettes. Like I wanted to be a goody two shoes. That was my plan. And, God showed up for me in those years so much. I would pray and things would happen instantly. There was a time where my dad was supposed to come pick me up and I hadn't seen him in a few months, and I was like so excited to see him, and he said his car wouldn't start. And so I was devastated and I was just bawling my eyes out, and I started praying and I was like, God, please let his car start. Please, please, God, let his car start. I just want to see my dad. And he called me 5 minutes later and his car started. And so I was like, okay, obviously there's a God and he's a genie. Like, this is the answer, right? And, there's another time I was babysitting this little girl and she just wouldn't stop crying. And I was so frustrated. And it was before there were cell phones. My mom was out with all her friends at the bar. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. I'm like 12, 11 years old, babysitting all these kids by myself, right? And I was losing it. And I just prayed and I was like, God, if you make her stop screaming, I swear I won't have sex till I'm married. And she just shut up and went to bed.
Okay.
Like instantly. Right? So that my plan was like, okay, I'm just going to be this good girl and I'm not going to live like my family. But then I met a boy and his family didn't believe in God, and they also had money, and they also were really nice people, and their life was fine and they weren't addicts and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, maybe it's not God. Because he was so like against religion, right? And I really wanted him to think I'm cool. So I stopped going to church and I started hanging out with these guys, and they were like drinking and smoking and, smoking weed and stuff. And
How old were you?
I was 16 at that point. I'd managed to avoid it for quite a while. But I was 16. And, my friend said it's so good. We were just in a book study the day before yesterday, and she said something, and I was like, that's exactly what it is. Like, I didn't know I was anxious. I didn't know I was insecure. I didn't know I was like hurting as bad as I was until I put that drink in my body. And as soon as I started drinking and using, I just felt free. I was like, oh, this is what life's supposed to feel like. I could flirt with the boy I wanted to flirt with. I felt like I was a part of things. My insecurity was gone. In the big book, they have these promises. And it was like alcohol was giving me those promises. Like fear was gone, insecurity was gone. I didn't care what people thought of me. I could just be myself for the first time in my life. And it felt like freedom. And I was like, if this makes me feel this good, what else can make me feel this good? And I started trying other substances as well. And, I went from, I'm never going to have sex till I'm married, I'm never going to drink or use, to starting to date a guy, seeing a penis for the first time. And then like 2 years later, I'm full-blown addict. I had like drunk drive, crashed my car into a house. I had, done drugs off a stranger in the middle of the woods, and nobody wanted me at their house anymore. I ended up homeless. I lost my job. And then I found out I was pregnant.
Wow.
Like within 2 years, it took me down. Right. But that pregnancy, it saved my life, because that made me stop in my tracks. everyone was telling me, like, you're too young, you're homeless, you just lost your job. Like, everyone's kicked you out of your place. I was sleeping under my grandma's coffee table or kitchen table. And I thought, I have no business being a mom. Like, plus I'd been drinking and using before I found out I was pregnant. So like, there's going to be something wrong. Like, I can't do this. And everyone's telling me, like, you're not responsible enough. You have options. Don't have this baby. And I went and got the ultrasound done to see how far along I was. And everyone told me it's molecules, it's nothing, whatever. And I was like, okay, like, I'm not going to have this baby. Obviously, I'm not mature enough. But as soon as I saw that ultrasound, it looked like a little graham cracker with like little arms and legs kicking. You could even see a tiny little nose. And I was just, my aunt was with me and I looked at her. I'm like, that's not a fucking molecule. I can't do this. Like, I can't do this. And I prayed for the first time since I met that boy. Like, I prayed and I asked God what to do. I just from my guts was just like, I need a sign. I need direction. I don't know what to do. And it was a surrender, right? And we were driving to Kelowna at the time. I was babysitting her son for her while she worked. And as we're driving, a billboard came up. Not just a sign. I got a billboard and it said abortion stops a beating heart. And I don't know if you know Vancouver, but they don't have signs like that. Like, we're a pretty open, liberal, like, progressive place, right? And I'd never seen a sign like that in my life. So your
decision was made right there.
It was right there, yeah. And so I got, I had my son and I cleaned up my life. I got my stuff together and things got really, really good. And I thought it was pregnancy. I was like, oh, pregnancy is amazing, but it's like you put down drugs and alcohol. That's what made life amazing. And when he was 3 months old, I went back to work and, I had been in this kind of la-la land bubble with him and not really interacting with people. I didn't have to face that insecurity and that fear and that anxiety. And when I went to start this new job, I all that stuff started coming back and I was feeling really anxious and having a hard time talking at work and getting to know my coworkers. And then they all started going out for drinks and I was like, oh, I know how to drink. I can do that. And I picked up a drink with coworkers and 2 years later got fired from that job, was back doing drugs. I started getting panic attacks and anxiety attacks because I'd been making questionable choices and ended up getting assaulted. And, for 2 years, I really struggled. I could barely leave my house. I couldn't get on a bus or a SkyTrain because I'd have anxiety and panic attacks anytime I left my house. And the only thing that was helping was alcohol and drugs. So that was my solution. Like, I'm either home or I'm using or I'm in the hospital because I'm having a panic attack. It feels like I'm dying.
How old were you at this point?
I would have been 21.
And the father of the child?
We ended things when he just turned a year. So for the first year we stayed together, but then I had started drinking and using and partying, and then that relationship fell apart. Yeah. Did
it fall apart because of your using?
Largely. I mean, we were also teenagers having a baby, so I don't know if it would have worked out anyway, but yeah, that was definitely, it accelerated things very quickly.
And was your family supportive through this period?
Yeah, I mean, my family was dysfunctional, so they'd never really known how to support me. So I felt like when I was doing poorly, I was almost more accepted. Like, I'm a part of everybody. Because I feel like my mom thought I was like a goody two-shoes. She didn't know what to do with me when I was like, you can't smoke cigarettes, you can't drink, and I'd get all upset about stuff. Like, she didn't know what to do with that. But when I was struggling and when I was down and out and I was using and I was drinking, like, that's her mom. That's her how she grew up. So I felt like we almost connected more at that point.
Wild.
Yeah.
And were you neglectful of the child at all?
I was so lucky. I had so much family around. So we lived with his grandma for the first little while, and then we moved into a townhouse complex that his other grandparents lived in. So I had so many people helping me out. He was really raised by a village, and his dad's been amazing too. Like, they've spent every weekend together. He's always been in his life. And honestly, being a teen mom was easier, I think, than when I was older and had children, because just like everyone came together and they were like bringing groceries over and stuff. But there were definitely times that, I think back to that make me absolutely sick in my stomach, that I that he was there with me, or I left him alone too long, or, you know, those kind of things. There's definitely times where he was neglected, but there was a lot of safety nets around us. So I never had to go through like having to give him up or anything like that.
And what was his name?
Riley.
How old's Riley today?
He's 18.
And how many other kids do you have?
I have 2 other kids.
What are their ages?
They are 10 and almost 6.
That's quite a span.
It is, yeah.
Has the 6-year-old, how long you been sober?
I've been sober 8.5 years.
So the 6-year-old's never had any experiences like Riley's had?
No, never. Yeah.
Has Riley ever expressed that how he was brought up and in some of the chaos affected him?
He hasn't yet. I did an amends with him early on, but I feel like I don't even know if he would remember it at this point, because I think he was like 6 or 7 years old. But, you know, it showed up for him in school. He had a lot of anxiety, and he has been incredible, and he's worked through it. He's one of the most amazing human beings. Like, he's just, I don't know, I used to call him an alien, because he was just the most perfect baby and the sweetest kid. And he's always had empathy and, you know, thought of others, and he was always kind. Like, he was meant to be on this earth, you know? I keep thinking, like, you're going to change the world someday, kid. Like, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you're in your younger mid-20s and you're kind of struggling, and you got some safety nets around you, but you're out of control?
Yeah. And so at that time, I didn't really know I was an alcoholic or an addict, because I didn't use every day. It's just like when I would use, I couldn't stop. And then afterwards, the hangovers were so bad, and I would have worse anxiety, and then I'd end up in the hospital. But I didn't really think I was an addict, because I could not use. Like, that was an option for me at the time. And I ended up going to counseling, because victim services gave me some support through that assault that I went through. And then I got on some anxiety medication, and then I got accepted into a film program and got like a scholarship. It was like a get back to work program where you could go learn to work in the film industry. And that was so exciting to me, because I babysat my 3 little brothers growing up, and we would make home movies all the time. Like, that's how I would, before the internet was a thing, we would spend my time. So my mom had like this camera, and we just like make these videos all the time, and I loved it. And it was like a creative escape where I could make the life that I wish I had, you know? And so I was like, oh my gosh, getting back into film would be amazing. It was like this under 30 youth program thing. So I started getting up every day at the same time and going to this thing. And the guy who was running the program was actually in AA.
No way.
Yeah, he was a 12-step guy. And the stuff he was teaching me was program stuff, like throughout this like film program. And I started getting so healthy and so much better. I was taking buses again. I was on the SkyTrain again. I wasn't even having anxiety. I was showing up as like a leader in this class, right? And I would drink on the weekends. I didn't really know I had a problem at that point, but things got really, really good. I had met my now husband by that point. We got a place together. And then after that film program ended, I got a dream job working for an arts center that I used to take classes at as a kid. And I remember looking at the teachers being like, oh, they have their stuff together. They're like, you know, I want to be them one day. And then I ended up getting an internship there and then working there part-time, and decided that, you know, I really wanted to open a thrift store for forever. And my mom, it was something she wanted to do too. So we ended up opening a thrift store together, and you know, we had the idea, and within 31 days it's open. And, you know, it was just so fun. Life got really, really good. And, drinking kept showing up, and it was affecting my ability to open the store. Every time I would like drink, my store would be closed for a day. So I decided to like put down drinking, put down drugs. It was like here and there, I would still do drugs. I stopped smoking. I started getting healthy, and I'm running this business. And then I got pregnant with my second son, and we had complications through the pregnancy. So he was born premature, and that was really, really hard. And, you know, I stayed sober through it. I actually went for a drink while he was still in the hospital. He had to be in the hospital for a month. My friend's like, you've had a really stressful time. Like, you're not pregnant anymore. Let's go for a drink. I took a sip of the drink, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And I just put it down and walked out of the bar. And I remember thinking, like, that's weird. I've never thought that before. Like, that's strange. And and it wasn't until like, I think he was like 2 months old and I went to a party and that insecurity was back and the fear was back. And I was just like, I forced myself to drink alcohol, even though I didn't want to, just so I could feel better, but it wasn't even making me feel better. So I just kept going and going and going. And then someone handed me drugs and I had this 2-month-old preemie baby that needed me to breastfeed him at home. And my dad was visiting and he has Parkinson's and I don't get to see him a lot. And, I just ruined that whole trip and let down my baby. And then I had guilt and shame and remorse. And then the only thing that I knew to help solve those things was more alcohol. And then it's like, how much can I get out of the house? When can I go party? And I mean, it was only 3 days a week. It wasn't every day. So I'm not an addict. I don't have a problem. It's just like every other day I'm having a hangover and then I go drink again. So, and then the hospital visit started again. I was getting panic attacks again. And now I've got this baby that needs me, fiance at home that I'm, just making his life a living hell. I'm lying, cheating, stealing, doing all these things. I can't look at myself in the mirror. I feel like a fraud. I'm working with kids and I was also doing wedding videography at the time. We had to close the thrift store because I got into a car accident, which they gave me pain pills for. And then that just started a whole other thing. So we had to close down the thrift store. I started doing wedding videography. And I'm like, well, if brides knew what I was up to, they wouldn't let me near their husbands. And if these parents of these kids knew what I was up to, they wouldn't let me near their kids. Like I just felt like a walking fraud everywhere I went, sick to my stomach. I felt like if I was ever going to be honest with anybody, no one would want to be in my life. Like I wanted to be a good person so fucking bad. Like all I wanted was to be a good person. And I kept ending up exactly in the same space over and over and over again. And then I got to the point where it's just like, I have to get off this planet or move away to somewhere that nobody knows who I am and start fresh because I can't live anymore. Like this is too much. And my last day drinking, I swore I wasn't going to drink. Like I started in the morning and I'm like, I'm going to end by 5 because I have to be at work the next day. And I was my first day having my own class to teach. I was an assistant before then. And this was my first, like my own videography class I'm teaching to kids. And I really wanted to do a good job. So it was like BC Day, long weekend. And a bunch of my friends were flying back from a vacation. They were all partying and I just couldn't miss out on it. So I was like, I'll just start drinking at noon and I'll end by 5. So I won't be hungover tomorrow and everything will be fine. So I started drinking at noon and then it was like 4 a.m. And, I got up in the morning and I was just like at the bottom of the shower throwing up and trying to get cold water on me, trying to feel okay so I can get to work. Probably still drunk, got my kids in the car, drove to my mom's house. I'm sure that was not safe in that state.
How was your husband?
He was at work. He left for work at like 5 a.m. So I don't know how he felt about that. He was probably like too nice. He's a good Al-Anon, He was just always there for me. He never really drank, so he was like designated driver. He was there with the kids when I go out, all that kind of stuff. So I'm really grateful for that because otherwise my kids would have been taken away for sure. But I got to my mom's house. She was watching my kids that day and I just kind of collapsed on the couch and I got honest for the first time. I told her absolutely everything that I had done. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like I've got to leave. I can't do this anymore. And then she told me about a friend who went to a 12-step program and got recovery and, was just as screwed up as me, was struggling as much as me, hurting as much as me. But then she went to this program and not only did she heal, but she helps other people heal and is like a big part of her community and just got this light back in her. And that gave me hope. I was like, okay, maybe I can change my life. Maybe I can be forgiven. Maybe this is possible. And I was just willing to do anything at that point. So
hold on. When you were telling your mom about everything and that you couldn't do it anymore, were you like saying to any degree, like, I can't be a mom. I can't be a wife. I don't know what I'm doing and I need to get the hell out of here type of thing and like ready to abandon life?
Yeah, well, it was either I'm going to run away from everybody and everything or I just need to end my life. Like those were my options in my head. I'd never had any tools before. I didn't know how to deal with any feelings I was feeling. And alcohol was the only thing that worked and it wasn't working anymore. And I hated myself and I didn't think there was a way out of that.
Okay. So your mom tells you about her friend and changed her life? Her?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to stop drinking and I'm going to do it on my own and it's going to be fine. And that was like a Tuesday. And then by Friday, my friends are going out and I'm feeling like I'm missing out again. And I'm like, shit, was it really that bad? Maybe I'm overreacting. I'll just have a couple. Maybe I'll just go out and I won't drink or whatever. And so, I got ready to go out that day. And instead I looked up 12-step meetings in my area because that's what my mom's friend had done. And so instead of going to the bar, I went to a 12-step meeting, and it was in the bottom of a basement of a hospital. And I thought it was at 7, but it was actually at 7:30. So I was way too early. So the hallway was completely dark except for this like one light into this room at the end of the hallway. And there's all these like beds, empty hospital beds beside me. It was so creepy. I felt like I was walking through a morgue or something. And I get to this room and there's just like this old guy putting out chairs, and he was way too old to be putting out chairs. And I was like, fuck, I'm going to have to help him. Because at this time I'm still like selfish, self-centered, but I don't want other people to know that. So I go help him put out chairs. And, I don't remember a lot from that meeting, but I remember seeing like you're powerless over alcohol on the walls and hearing people share about that. And I was like, holy shit, like, am I powerless? Like, can I not control this? Is this not my fault? Like, I thought I was just a broken person that was doomed to be bad. Like my family was cursed or something. But to think like maybe if I put alcohol in my body, I don't have a choice anymore. That gave me freedom for some reason. I was just like relieved of something.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to my next meeting and got connected with some incredible women. We started going through the big book a little bit, which the first time I read it by myself kind of was like Chinese. Like, what is this? I don't understand. And then someone read it to me, and then it kind of came to life, and I understood it. And my life started changing, and I got to just about 2 months sober and found out my aunt her life was taken. And it was the most devastating thing that had ever happened to me my whole entire life. Like I felt like I had been handled with kid gloves until then. And now I'm sober, and like no one stays sober through this stuff. Like this is what we drink over. This is why they invented alcohol. Clearly I'm not staying sober through this. And they gave me this pamphlet with a bunch of numbers on it when I first came into their program. And I remember hearing people say over and over, before you pick up a drink, pick up a phone. And so I did. I was going to pick up a drink because I thought, duh, this is why they invented alcohol. But instead I picked up the phone. And I asked every single person that answered their phone that day if I could drink over this. And every single one of them said, no, you can get through this sober. And I didn't believe them, but I went to bed that night sober. And then I woke up sober, and something in me fundamentally changed. Like there was my first spiritual experience. It was just like, holy shit, you can get through things sober. You don't have to drink over this. Like I couldn't have a fight with my mom without drinking alcohol before. And now I just got through a day of the most horrific day I'd had up until that point. Right. And I didn't have to pick up a drink over it. So that really cemented the belief that that program works, and that, if I don't do this alone, I can do this,
Wow. That's craziness. So seeing powerlessness on the wall, it just really kind of triggered something. And it kind of made things make sense, right? And I get what you're saying, because when I first came into recovery, I also started in 12-step, and it's kind of branched into many aspects of recovery. But when I saw powerless over alcohol and drugs, it just made me think, holy shit. And then as I learned about it, I also felt like it's not all my fault. And then as I kept going through this process, I got to the 4th step, and I remember it talks about getting down to causes and conditions. And not only was I relieved of like knowing that I was powerless over alcohol, that I didn't actually pick it up on purpose all the time. I was compelled to do it. I also understood that I didn't have control of my anger and other emotions. And I felt such a relief when I got into my 4th step, because I figured I'm not just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I think I have a pathway out of this. But I wasn't sure yet, but I had the hope, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's the fourth step was like huge for me. I found out like basically all my problems were boiled down to I didn't feel wanted,
Yeah.
and I started doing all these shitty things to try and feel wanted. And every time something happens where I didn't feel wanted, my feelings were hurt and I was holding resentment. And it was so weird. Like someone could have punched me in the face and stole my car and it wouldn't hurt me as much as if you
Right.
didn't invite me to a party, So it was really cool. I found like, when I did that, it was like I had this list of names of people who I thought owed me an apology. And then I had a list of things that hurt my feelings. And then I had a list of why they hurt my feelings. And then what I did when my feelings were hurt. And it was like all of a sudden I could see it. I could see the patterns and I never had to react to them again. Because I could feel that feeling coming up of like, oh, I'm not feeling wanted. And instead of like reacting by sleeping with your husband, I just felt the feelings,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so after getting sober and getting through that, things got really good. I went to this program for like health weight loss sort of thing. I lost 80 pounds. I started traveling. I'd never been on a plane before that. And I just thought that was out of the question for me because I grew up in poverty. Like we don't take trips on planes. That's silly. But yeah, I was flying on planes. Me and my husband decided to plan a wedding. I had my 30th birthday sober. We had a dry grad party and made like a prom sort of thing. And then I had my bachelorette party sober and I was really healthy and I was helping other people get healthy and we got married and life just got so good so fast. And I thought that was just going to be my whole recovery. I'm like, everything's just going to get better from now on.
Yeah.
And then after I got married, we decided to have another baby. And through that pregnancy, I got so sick. And then all of a sudden I couldn't show up like I was showing up before. And like we were talking about, I was getting so much validation for being there for other people. And so much of my self-worth was like, how can I show up for other people? And how many people can I collect, And so when that wasn't there anymore and I couldn't serve people and I couldn't help people and I, couldn't even answer my phone sometimes because I just felt so sick to my stomach. And then I was on bed rest for a bit in that pregnancy. I couldn't even get to meetings and all these things that were working for me, right? I started getting really depressed.
Mm-hmm. Your worth was lying in the things that you were doing for other people.
Yeah, 100%, more than I knew. And my friendships were all reliant on me being this person who could show up for everybody, but I wasn't showing up for myself through that. So I was really down and I was just like, why the hell would you pluck me out of addiction, bring me here, put me through all this, show me how good life could be just to knock me back down on my ass? And I was mad at God, and I started praying and I was like, I need a purpose. I need something. Tell me why I'm here. What am I here for? What is the meaning of this? And I took a shower and I heard this voice like loud and clear in my mind. It was just like, your story, my glory. And I felt like, okay, this is something. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know I'm supposed to share my story. I'm supposed to get out there and like show people there's a way out, show people there's a bigger plan for your life. Like you don't have to stay stuck here. And so after that, I ended up starting a podcast and I met so many incredible people through that. And it was just so fun. And I felt like I was coming alive again. Like I was finding my purpose. Right. And then the pandemic happened and I started having panic attacks every day. Like everything just flipped upside down. And I also had postpartum depression through all this as well. So I was like really struggling with my higher power. So the pandemic happened, but the beauty out of that pandemic was I started doing things online instead of doing podcasts in person. Like I was doing Zoom podcasts and I was meeting people from all over the world, from the US, from like New Zealand. I got to talk to people from everywhere. It wasn't just like local recovery stories anymore. And then in August of 2020, I turned 4 years sober. I was celebrating with my family, with my little brothers were there. My one brother had been struggling with addiction for a while. He was into pills and really had the alcoholic gene for sure. And he was dabbling with things here and there. He wasn't as bad as I had gotten to, but he was going down that path. And he just got a girlfriend that had brought him to some meetings. She was in recovery. She's sober off of some harder drugs. And, I saw him that day and his light was back. He had 2 days sober. He had just started going to meetings. And I was like, this is it. Like, I can sleep at night. I don't have to worry about him. He's going to be okay. and we're all there celebrating. And, 2 weeks later, I got the call that I had been dreading forever, like since he was 19 and started drinking. And I just got sober when he turned 19. And my mom called me and told me he didn't make it. He didn't wake up in the morning. And, it was the middle of the pandemic. Everything was chaotic. And I didn't know what to do other than just get there as fast as I could because they were going to take him away. And I didn't know if I was ever going to see him or if we could have a funeral or what was going to happen. Because at that time we were just allowed to be together outside in small groups, right? Mm-hmm. So I got there and he was like lying on the ground and I just laid on top of him and I started praying like gut prayer that I prayed when I was little. And I was just like, God, you do miracles. You can do absolutely anything. Like just wake him up. Just bring him back to us. Give us one more chance. I swear I won't let him out of my sight. Like just give us one more chance. And he didn't wake up. And I was just like kind of broken. And so I prayed like, God, if he's not going to make it, like let his story save millions of people, like thousands of people, whoever it can save, like just so other families don't have to go through this. Right. But anytime I'd ever prayed like that before, like God showed up and God didn't show up, And so I started doubting it. Mm-hmm. I was like, is there a God? Like, look at this pandemic. Look at the way the world is. Look at how humanity is. Now I've lost my brother. All these people are dying. Like, where is God in all this? And I started having a lot of doubts and I still showed up and went to meetings and I still showed up and I served and I still like did my program and prayed and meditated and tried to keep doing the things because that's all I had. Mm-hmm. It was that or drink, right? But I didn't believe anymore. I didn't trust anymore. I didn't have faith anymore. I was like in so much fear. And I stayed there for a couple of years until, I met Jay with Empower to Recover and we started doing these events and stuff. And then I was on my way to promote our event on the island, on Vancouver Island. There's a big event called Sober Fest, and I was on my way there, and on my way at the ferry I got a call that my uncle had died from an overdose. And my grandma was an absolute mess, and she's like, her health isn't great, and she was somebody that helped raise me, like she's like a parent to me, right? And so I was just devastated and I was so worried about her and I didn't know what to do. And I had been living on my own will and through fear for so long. Mm-hmm. And not being able to trust a higher power. I was like in a spiritual relapse, right? And I never picked up drugs or alcohol, but I picked up food and I picked up people and I was trying to make people my higher power. And we just fucking suck at being higher powers. Like mm-hmm. humans are not good gods. And so I had another like surrender moment there and I just prayed and I said, God, I need a sign. I need to know you're here. I need to know you're with me. I need to know I'm going to be okay or I'm going to pick up a drink. Like I can't keep living through all of this. And right after I prayed, 7 eagles flew over my car. And it was just like I felt God and I knew it was a sign, but I was like, what does this mean? Like I would like a billboard again. Like I just need a little clarity, right? We pulled into the place we were staying, the Airbnb, and there was a huge eagle, carved eagle at the gate of the Airbnb we were staying at. And then at the cabin, there was another big eagle statue there. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like I just felt like I was being guided every step of the way. And I got through that weekend and I got home and I went to church for the first time in like years. And I didn't even mean to. My car just kind of took me there, And I showed up at church and the whole sermon was about the symbolism of the eagle in the Bible.
No way.
Yeah. And it was about how like God is carrying you back to him was what it meant. And I was just like, holy shit. I had a big spiritual experience that moment and I slowly started like building that faith back up. And yeah, it was huge. And now, it's been a few years. I've been working really hard, getting back into the middle, like showing up again. Life gets really, really good. I'm having amazing moments. My grief is heavy, but I'm having like a lot of joy in between and a lot more joy than grief some days even. And just recently in October, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And we've only got a few weeks left now. Mm. And, it's hard. This stuff is so hard.
And where's God now?
That's the thing. It's like I'm for the first time in like 4 or 5 years, whatever, 25 years now, I'm not suffering in this grief. You know, I feel the presence of my higher power. I feel Creator. I feel God with me through this. I feel faith that he's going to be free. He had Parkinson's or has Parkinson's, and he's been suffering for a really, really long time. And it's devastating, and I hate every second of watching him go through this. But I have faith again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not suffering in it. I'm not even thinking about drinking or using. You know, I'm showing up to this event this weekend to share a message of recovery, to be of service. I feel like I'm able to be there for others because I just wasn't when I was in fear, when I was in like that self-centered, self-pity fear.
Mm-hmm.
I was useless to other people. I was useless to myself, you know, and I don't feel that today. And although I'm like grieving and I hate it and I'm struggling, I'm not suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I have so much hope. And I feel like I'm determined to kind of grow through this and to heal through this. There's been so many like childhood wounds coming up through this process of like losing my dad and just like, you know, this is it. We don't ever get to change our relationship. This is all I got left, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard, but I feel so much healing through it as well.
So one thing that you reminded me of, and it has to do with death, but I'm going to take it to a different place first. So in my first year of recovery, I wasn't really around as a father. I had destroyed like my family's life, and they were homeless. I was homeless, and I went to recovery to get better. Even though I didn't really know I was going to get better, I just needed to quit using. But as I started to get better, I still didn't pay much attention to my family because I was pretty broken, and then the guilt kind of set in, and then so I wasn't like interacting with my kids or my ex-wife much, and they were living with our nanny in a crawl space in her house because there was no place for my family to live anymore. And then second year, I started like touching base with my kids and being a dad or trying to be whatever that looked like at that point. And then I started talking about like 12-step recovery and God and all these things. And then my family's like getting repulsed by that.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better and they're not. And then, you know, year 3, I'm kind of doing the same type of thing. And then it kind of all blew up in my face. And my daughters, they just got super disgusted with the God thing and the AA thing and the me changing. And because I was changing, they were like, who the hell are you anyway? Like, you're not even the dad that I know. You're not even the person. Like, I don't even know who you are. And like, even my ex-wife, they all got super resentful and mad at me. And what ended up happening was I realized there was like an epiphany one day. I'm like, quit fucking talking about AA. Quit talking about God. Just shut up and be a good dad.
Yeah.
Try to be a good dad. And so I started trying to be just a good dad, and I started keeping my mouth shut and just like showing up and spending time and not talking about what I was talking about. And then I had another epiphany where I read a book called Seed of the Soul, and right around then I started reading a whole bunch of books, and Seed of the Soul taught me a big lesson. And subsequently from there, many other books and my whole journey has taught me many lessons. But I was still kind of new in those first 2 or 3 years learning, figuring shit out, right? And then one of the big lessons out of that book was like that I realized those kids aren't my kids. They're Creator's kids. And I took my hands like off of trying to tell them what they should do with their life or trying to manipulate them in my own way in any shape or form. And I was like, they're Creator's kids. They're God's kids. And I had messages saying, your only job is to live your life like you would want them to live theirs. And don't tell them what to do. And so I never, from that day forward, I never told them what to do. I would only give them advice if they asked. And from there, our relationships have really flourished. So now flipping this to like, death and like even like rain, it's raining on me, it's like snowing on me, it's like it's me, everything's me. And I had an epiphany in Regina where I was like, who are you to say that this is a shitty day? Because it was a nasty day. But I was like, God, thanks for this shitty day. And I was like, God doesn't make shitty days. It's just God's day, and we need all of the weather that he gives us to sustain what we have on this earth. And then it shifted in a bunch of shifts, and it was like, even when people die, for me, I'm like, they didn't die on me, and I'm not really losing anything because nothing happens in God's world by mistake.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that. And because of I do so much of this work and there's so much death in it, I honestly am able to navigate a lot of this without like a lot of personal suffering. And the foundation of that is understanding that God's in charge. Mm-hmm. And when things happen, they happen for whatever the reason is that maybe I don't understand. And some are harder than others, dependent on like my emotional attachment to the people. But it's just allowed me to keep vitality and always have my faith and belief and trust in Creator that he's the seemingly good in my life and he's the seemingly bad in my life. And he's given me emotions to regulate and be aware of how I'm feeling, what I'm doing, and I use those now to like navigate my life, right? So yeah, I don't know. It just reminded me of those teachings that I had learned in many respects the hard way, and not so much the hard way anymore today. But you feel really good, even though some seemingly terrible things are kind of going on, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I feel good all the time, but I allow myself to feel. Like, I allow myself to get through things with tears on my face, you know, if I need to. I've had many business meetings with Jay, actually, where I'm just like crying because I was grieving my brother while we were trying to start a business, and it was like his anniversary date or something. And so we talk about heavy stuff. We're out here doing heavy work, and that it brings up emotion. It triggers some things in me, but I've learned how to laugh through tears, live through tears, you know, feel my feelings instead of eating my feelings or drinking my feelings or thinking my feelings. I just need to let them be feelings and feel them, right?
Yeah. And with the anxiety, how's your anxiety these days?
It's awful.
Do you still get it?
Yeah, it's been, since the pandemic, it's been a struggle for sure. And I'm trying really hard not to be medicated, but if I need to go down that route, I will. I'm using, you know, meditation and just being around people and getting out of my head, getting out of myself really helps. But just like getting on the flight to come here, I have anxiety. I get panic attacks, anxiety attacks all the time. And I'm kind of grateful for it because I can literally do anything through an anxiety attack. Like, I could do podcasts with my shoulders in my ears and like, you know, show up and do comedy shows and through a panic attack. And I just do it because I'm so used to them at this point in my life. That I don't let it stop me, but it's not uncomfortable. I don't know what has happened in the last few days, but I've felt oddly calm. I've been really in prayer a lot since finding out about my dad and just like reconnecting with that higher power. I don't know if that's what it is. But considering the state of the world and like, you know, everything that's going on and my dad and all this stuff, like, the fact that I even got on a plane, I got here, you know, I'm going to be showing up for an event tomorrow. I'm here doing a podcast, like that I haven't had a full blown panic attack in this time and haven't even slept well. It is a miracle. Like, I prayed for peace beyond understanding, calm beyond understanding, faith beyond understanding before coming here. And I feel like I'm being carried through it all.
It's an amazing feeling, eh?
Yeah.
In collecting that data, you know, I talk often about sober patterns in sobriety, and whatever these patterns are you're noticing now, and it's kind of odd, you know, we have a disease of mind and body, and I think the mind tries to let go first, but it's through the body where we find the peace, right?
Yeah.
And like me and Jay were talking earlier, it takes time, takes self-reflection and time. Like, you can't hurry some healing, right?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I'm on a new path as well. That's only about 2 years old. Like, I had recovery. I feel like I lost it, even though I was still showing up. It wasn't the same. I lost my faith. I lost my spiritual recovery, right? So I'm just on this new journey with that. And so I know I'm not expecting everything to be sunshine and roses anymore, but I'm also learning to appreciate things like grief and those breakdowns, because so much growth and beauty comes through. I'm a stronger version of myself than I've ever been. I trust myself more than I ever have. I have a new faith in a higher power that I trust more than I ever have. I have better people in my life because I'm not relying on them to be my higher power. So I just get to have relationships and people can come and go as they please in my life now, which is so freeing. Trying to hold on to humans and like make sure no one's ever going to hurt you is absolutely exhausting. And I don't know how people stay sober through that. Like that is, it drove me nuts, you know?
And the message that you can carry to many other people about how you grow through these things. And like, I'm sure many women and men too included probably come to you and say like, fuck, wow, you inspire me. And like you're raw, right? You're raw and you're real. And I've seen your tears on some of your content and like you're real. And that's what people appreciate. And then they ask you, how do you do it? And you just tell them, be raw and be real and do what I do through the leadership that you provide, right? And a lot of people come to you and tell you really nice things.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even know the people that you're affecting when you show up online and you just share things. Like I've kind of given up on having a traditional job because of all the things I've put out into the internet now. But sometimes, you know, things don't blow up and you think, what am I even doing this for? And you don't really see that interaction. And then all of a sudden people in real life come to you and be like, oh, I saw your post a while ago and it really made a difference in my life. And you're like, okay, like there's a reason why I'm doing this. There's a reason why I'm showing up. I do get it a lot because I work with this moms group and like I see these moms every morning and we stay connected and stuff. And, you know, being able to share in that closed space with things not just of recovery, but with motherhood and, you know, relationships and all that stuff that we talk about. When you show up that way, raw and honest, and you just let it all out there and you're okay with your flaws and you're okay with your mistakes and you tell people about it and then you work through it and then you come out the other end and people see that, they feel the freedom to open up. They feel the freedom to make mistakes, to try things. And then find their way on the other end as well.
Yeah. And that's the leadership, right? Just leading by your best example of being authentic and giving other people permission. And
sometimes it feels silly. It feels like I look back at things I've posted and I'm like, why did I put that out for the world? But because it's not my story is meant to be shared. Like that's what I've learned from that, prayer that I sent to God, and he said, your story, my glory. So I just put it out there and it is what it is. I am where I'm at when I'm there. And, you know, sometimes it's in the messy middle and sometimes it's out on the other end of it, but
yeah. And we are humans. So we have a lot of different experiences and it can't all be roses and sunshine and beautiful. Some of it's beautifully dark.
Yeah.
But it takes a while to see the beauty in the dark. So yeah, I'm really happy that I got you here and, you know, got to hear some of your story. And I didn't know many aspects of your story. I've only, you know, met you in person, I think twice. Once at ER2 a couple years ago. And then I think I ran into you last year at the recovery.
Yeah, I seen you a couple of times at recovery days, I think.
Yeah.
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 No.
And then at the event last year.
Yeah. No, you're amazing, man. And
thanks.
Where can people find you?
Find me online at Brooke Redell, REDELLE, or at Sober Biz Co. That's where I'm at on social media. And then soberbizco.com is my website. If you are a sober entrepreneur and you just want to even talk to somebody about what you're going through. I feel like entrepreneurship and relationships, they kind of, and parenting, bring out a lot of character defects, and you'll see a lot of things you still need to heal in that journey as well. I know for me, it's been one of the biggest mirrors of where do I still need to work on things? Where am I still insecure? You know? Yeah. So
that's amazing. So you've heard it. If you want to get a hold of Brooke, you can hit me up. I'll direct you to her, but, you know, find her on her platforms and give her some support. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Okay. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
See you tomorrow.
You will.